What's up everybody, Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Nick, and I am back with some more states of metal and decided to go over another relatively obscure state that you wouldn't necessarily think there would be a lot of metal. And to be honest, there really wasn't in this state, but I did find some really good stuff. So we are going to go over metal from the state of Maine. Now I only have like 5 releases for this one, but they're pretty interesting and they're pretty diverse. And well, let's go into what I know about Maine. First off, it is the furthest north of the lower 48, and it is the only state in the Union that is one syllable. Now there are not a tremendous amount of people there, as this is the 9th least populous state in the Union. In fact, there are probably more lobsters than there are people there because, I mean, Maine's known for lobsters. And for the record, I am all for the lobster chicken battle between Delaware and Maine. I think it would be an exciting event, and honestly, my money would definitely be on the chickens. Stephen King loves the place, and he paints such a wonderful picture of Maine. Everything there is apparently terrifying, and every sewer is loaded with a child-devouring clown demon. But honestly, I think the creepy stuff is kind of Maine's thing anyway, as haunted lighthouses and haunted inns are a big attraction there. I'm reasonably sure Stephen King probably checked out all of them and may have been inspired to write some terrifying novel from them. I know that winter loves Maine, and Maine probably just tolerates winter because they're forced to, because winter just kind of comes in and wrecks shit there. But surprisingly, Maine has a desert, which I just found out looking up weird facts about Maine. That does not seem like the place for a desert, but here we are, and there it is. So go check it out if you want. Much like Oregon, Maine has a Portland, but it has decidedly less death metal bands in it. But there is a town called Bangor, Maine, and that kind of sounds a little metal at least. And of course, if you have ever listened to anyone from Maine speak, it is probably the thickest New England accent you've ever heard. The letter R does not exist in the lexicon of Maine speech. It's just, well, you know, haba, go out to the car. You know, it's just, yeah, it's the most New England sounding accent of probably all the New England states. And keep in mind, I've already covered Massachusetts on here, and that's pretty damn New England too. But while there aren't very many metal bands there, or necessarily like a big thriving scene there, there are some cool metal bands that I wanted to bring up and showcase what Maine has to offer other than, you know, beautiful scenery and getting just destroyed by winter every year. So again, I have 5 releases here from 5 different bands, and we're gonna go over them. First up, we have Seep with their debut EP, Souvenirs of a Necrosadist. I don't know where in Maine this band is from, or rather this person, because this is a one-man death metal / death doom act it's from, but I know that they're from Maine. I got this after I heard a couple of tracks in 2021. I really enjoyed the style. It's gross, it's slimy, it's murky, very groove-laden. And the fact that it is just bottom-heavy, swampy guitars mixed with a drum machine, it's almost like the Death Doom equivalent of Mortician. There are a lot of droning, disgusting riffs on here and slow, lumbering grooves with really solid vocals, actually kind of comparable to Creeping Death a bit, like they have a cool intonation to them. The drum machine actually sounds good, like it's a pretty solid program. It doesn't get like obnoxious in terms of like the snare sound or anything like that. And there are some cool like light synths peppered in for atmosphere in here, especially on the opening of the song Boiled in Piss. I really hope that's not a recipe for lobster. Yeah, the song titles are great. There's only 3 of them. Boiled in Piss, obviously that's the middle track, but Phlegm Burial, that's fucking gross, and Noose of Entrails, also gross, but somehow not as gross as Phlegm Burial. But Boiled in Piss is definitely one of my favorites in terms of, well, song title is pretty good, but in terms of the song construction, the opening synths kind of set the atmosphere, and they have an isolated guitar line on it, and as it lumbers through, it actually gets a little bit faster, like you get some autopsy-style D beats to it. And Noose of Entrails is somehow this amazing smattering of both brutal death metal and death doom. Like it's doom slam. The breakdowns are that palm-muted chuggy style, but they're slow and just kind of lethargic and just dripping with all sorts of grimy atmosphere. That is an absolutely disgusting combination of 2 very extreme just ends of the spectrum on death metal in general. Now I thought about using their full-length Hymns to the Gore, which I really do enjoy that, but this EP is what got me into them, and there's nothing but killer material on here. If you love death doom and brutal death metal and old school death metal kind of all wrapped up into one. This is just an absolutely gross release. All 3 tracks are killer. Honestly, if you wondered what Mortician would sound like slowed down and doomed up, this is probably the closest thing I can think of. Definitely check this one out. Check out their full length too. It's also awesome. But yeah, this is just fucking monstrous. Last Chance to Reason, Level 2. This is the second album from this Augusta-based progressive metal act. I picked this one up on a whim years ago when it dropped on Prosthetic Records in 2011. I really didn't know much about the band. I think there was probably a hype sticker, and I probably barely read it, but when I jammed this album, I was pretty fucking blown away by the musicianship and all the interesting concepts on here. Now, I have not heard any of their other stuff, but I know this one is essentially based on humanity's relationship with technology and told from the perspective of an adaptive AI that is constantly observing and constantly adapting to all the changes. And I'll be honest, it's kind of Tron-ish, but I like Tron, so that's really not a big issue. But the band overall pulls a lot of its influences from bands like BT Bam, Opeth, Cynic, King Crimson, as well as Yes and Dream Theater, just to throw more prog in there. And honestly, the bands I think I hear the most in here are BT Bam and Cynic. There are lots of like jazz fusion passages that are very Cynic-ish. The rhythms and the complexity in terms of like, you know, drum patterns and such, very much along the lines of Cynic as well. But it's the constant shifting and transitions, definitely has a little bit of that BT Bam, just kind of go wherever the hell you want sort of style. You have lush synth work everywhere, syncopated rhythms and breakdowns, vocals that alternate between kind of that Cynic style of like spacey sort of filtered vocals and just harsh screams. And while this definitely has like a lot of heavier sections, more akin to like the heavier sections in, you know, BT Bam, the songs aren't overly long. They're actually pretty concise. I think the longest track on here is like 6 minutes, but they're very elaborate. So again, kind of like Cynic. There's a good balance of like melody and musicality. I really like when they do get like flat out heavy, like the song Portal has some great brutal chugs. It's honestly some of the heaviest material on there, but I like how it pivots back and forth between all the more spacey cosmic stuff. And the song Temp Files on here almost has like a little bit of like a voivod sort of, you know, sort of craziness to the song structure as well. And all of the synths definitely remind me a lot of Tron, both, you know, the original movie and the Tron Legacy. It just kind of has that vibe. Every musician on here, I think, is doing a great job. There's great lead work. There's solid bass work. In fact, they isolate the bass work pretty often on here for like just drum and bass sections, and then sort of kind of build back with synths and guitars. And the commitment to the theme, I think, is really cool too. There's a repeated refrain on the song The Prototype saying that technology did not give them peace. And I mean, yeah, you kind of just look around the world and it's like, no, it's more or less a distraction. Granted, it can be such a useful thing in terms of making our lives better, but at the same time, you could say it's a hindrance and a crutch that we rely on, and you know, maybe it's stripping our humanity. There's a lot of arguments to be made in this, and you know, it's again a conceptual piece, and I don't know, I like sci-fi shit like that, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, I really dig this album, and I do need to get more by this band. This is just really cool prog. I like the fact that it is both heavy, like it embraces some more extreme metal tropes, but also has a lot of classic ones. It's just a really solid blend, and again, I really like their themes too. So yeah, if you're a big fan of Cynic, BT Bam, like those are probably the two main ones, but there's definitely some stuff on here that is similar to Dream Theater, Opeth, even Voivod. Just check this band out. I think they're really solid, and I definitely want to get more of their stuff in the future. All right, this next one, I don't have a physical copy of. Apparently I lost my physical copy a while ago, so I ordered it once again. But the band we are going to discuss is Ogre, Thrice as Strong. This one came out in 2019. This is their 5th album overall, and this is a Kittering/Raymond heavy metal/hard rock/doom metal act. For me, what it boils down to is a doom metal act with a love of classic hard rock. Doom metal is definitely sort of the big vibe in it, and it's kind of an older style, like I would say, you know, early Candlemass, but also bands like St. Vitus, or, you know, maybe The Obsessed as well. There's definitely a wino-ish tinge to the vocals, but there's also a lot of classic heavy metal on there, almost kind of similar to Manila Road. But at the same time, they have drawn a lot of comparisons to bands like Fireball Ministry, Black Sabbath, Sir Lord Baltimore, and even Pentagram. And all of that is really applicable. The band is a 3-piece overall. It is very riff and groove based, and what I really liked about it is it feels very stripped down. Like the production is almost kind of what you would get live, I would think. And I really like how it shifts around between like straight up hard rock / heavy metal riffs to big doomy breakdowns. A good example of that is definitely the song Hive Mind, which starts off like just like a big 80s rocker, but as it gets to the bridge, it sinks down to the depths and gets this slow, kind of brooding doom metal breakdown. And all the vocals on here are clean. It's a very interesting delivery. Like, it's occasionally kind of nasally. Like, that was kind of one of the reasons why I thought of Manila Road as a comparison, because, I mean, you know, that dude's vocals were definitely an acquired taste, but the music was really solid. But the rocking tracks are pretty fun and definitely contrast the more doom-laden ones. The song King of the Wood, which I definitely giggled when I read that title out loud, because I have the sense of humor of a 14-year-old. It's a fun rocker of a song, definitely some old Black Sabbath in it. They even pepper in a cowbell for good measure just to complete that vibe. But the big standouts to me with this band are the longer tracks, Blood of Winter and Cyberzar. These are the two giant standouts, both of them being, I would say, like 8 minutes or maybe close to 8 minutes. They're both the longer tracks on the album, and the songwriting is absolutely fantastic. Blood of Winter is slow, brooding, it's dark. Great chorus on it. The riffs are bleak, it's moody, and man, the bridge on it is just fucking fantastic. I absolutely love that song. It's probably my favorite on the album, but Cyberzar definitely takes their themes in a different direction, because this band's themes are interesting because they like both fantasy and sci-fi, and they kind of, you know, put them together. Like, there's a song called Judgment Day that definitely seems like it may have been inspired by the Terminator. But Cyberzar is definitely their big sci-fi doom epic. There are marching snares, like the machines uprising to come get us. Like, there is definitely a big atmospheric vibe in that song that screams, destroy the humans, exterminate their species. It's like an Ultron Cyberdyne fucking tag team out to just rip us apart. And I love the marching snare build up to it, like it's kind of a call to arms. Like, it feels just bleak and oppressive, and the fact that there's like kind of a cool story to the lyrics really adds to it. I hadn't listened to this album in forever. I want to say we got this back when we were doing like Screaming Toilet stuff, which was fucking forever ago. And I don't know if I liked it as much as I did now, but then again, I've listened to so much stuff since then that, you know, this sort of stuff really appeals to me, and I really dug this album, and honestly, I kind of want to find more of their stuff. So yeah, if you like bands like Obsessed, Sir Lord Baltimore, Black Sabbath, of course, maybe a little bit of Manila Road, definitely check this band out, check this release out, and I mean, honestly, I'm eventually going to check out more by the band because, yeah, I think this is really good. Cruel Hand, Lock and Key. This is the third album from this Portland-based hardcore / crossover act. Now, this band originally started as a side project to this band, Outbreak, which I thought about bringing up, but it's a little bit more punk-leaning than metal. And, you know, it's definitely hardcore, but this is more metallic hardcore, so I went with this one, and kind of glad I did. Another one that I hadn't revisited in a while, and going back to this with the surge of metallic hardcore going on right now, this was pretty damn refreshing. As I said, this has a more metallic edge, and the metal I think that they kind of latch onto is definitely thrash, and predominantly like Cro-Mags. Like, there's a lot of Cro-Mags worship in terms of like vocal phrasing, the riffs. You have fast thrashy sections curtailing into big, just beefy, groovy breakdowns. The guitars have a gnarly thrash crunch to them, and the vocals alternate between what I would say is just like straightforward, like hardcore vocals to, I mean, kind of Metallica-ish vocals, like early Metallica. Like, there's still quite a bit of gruffness to the vocals, and just in terms of like the intonation, it kind of sounds like James Hetfield in spots. You definitely feel the thrash punch on the Eponymous track, but there seems to be a lot of Eponymous tracks here lately. Anyway, Cruel Hand, Day of Darkness, and Labyrinth. They're faster, there's more machine gun riffs, there's definitely more of a crossover thrash bite to them. But the thing I really like about this is the full tilt just assault. Like, this album just goes, it doesn't stop. It's very similar to like Drain or Enforced. There's really no wasted time, and there really shouldn't be, because most of the songs are, you know, 2 minutes or less. I think there's 1 3-minute track on here. And I mean, it's still fast and furious, and again, it's just in your face the entire time. And for a hardcore release or like crossover or a mix between the two, that's kind of what I want. Like, don't relent, keep going, and make sure the momentum is kept throughout the entire album. That is definitely true. Even in their groovier moments and songs like Rotations of Hurt, it's that gnarly, hardcore kind of moshing groove that fucking hits. And you get good build-ups too with them, like One Cold Face with the Floor Tom sort of hardcore build-up. This is just, you know, kind of a all-killer, no-filler release, in my opinion. I have not jammed much of their stuff for recently, and honestly, I don't think they've put out an album in a while, so I don't know if this band is still around, but I definitely recommend this one. If you love crossover thrash and hardcore, I think you'll probably like just about everything on here. I check out Outbreak too. Outbreak's really good. It's definitely more punk-leaning, but this is definitely more on the thrash metal side, and I mean, if you like shit like Cro-Mags, Enforced, Drain, definitely check this out. And finally, we have Ocean, Here Where Nothing Grows. This is the debut album from this Portland-based sludge/doom/drone band. This is not to be confused with The Ocean, which is the, you know, proggy post-metal band that I absolutely love as well. This is a completely different animal. This is one of the sludgiest, droniest things that I own. There are only 3 tracks on here: First Rain, Salt, The Fall. And all of them are either over 20 minutes or near the 20-minute mark. And this moves at such a lumbering slow pace that you could probably make a sandwich in between droning chords. This is like taking a Pelican album and playing it at like 1/8 speed. But I fucking love it. I picked this up forever ago, actually probably confusing it with The Ocean, and I was very surprised at what I heard. This is dense, cathartic, almost sort of a Neurosis sort of vibe in terms of the atmosphere. It lumbers, it lurches, it's just kind of gross and very cathartic sounding, and absolutely awesome at doing all of those things. While there are some vocals on here, they are very spaced out. A lot of this is very musical. The sections of the songs are very long. I mean, they should be. These songs are, again, in the 20-minute range, but they space out with clean breaks, feedback build up, isolated sections of drum and bass, and then just, of course, single chord droning riffs that are sustained throughout the void of this album. This is almost like brown note level, like where like a couple of these riffs could shake a poo loose. But for as minimalistic as it is in terms of the music, it generates so much atmosphere. The end of First Rain has like a section where the rain samples kind of pepper in there, and you have this long droning drum and bass outro that I think is really cool. And Salt is probably my favorite on there because I think it really explores like the dynamics of their sound. There are really cool clean melodies. In fact, it starts out clean and then slowly builds up into honestly some of the catchiest melodies on the album. It kind of reminds me a bit more of like Cult of Luna, albeit played like even slower. There's some like weird phaser effects to the guitars. It feels, you know, a little bit more like somber and reflective versus being just bleak and oppressive. And the last track, The Fall, is a little bit more up-tempo for them. Like there's some big, heavy, you know, chuggy riffs on it. Has a little bit of like a hardcore influence, and it does move slightly faster than the other two. It does eventually slow down to a crawl, and there's some like long sections of isolated vocals and lots of feedback. And then there is a section of what I would say are just like layered, creepy whispers. It's almost sort of a static din in the background, but you can make out words. It's like someone watching TV in another room and you can hear it through the vents, and it's just this sort of dull muttering. It definitely gives the song like a kind of an unsettling vibe overall, but I love this entire album. Now granted, you have to be patient with it because everything on here moves at a snail's pace, but this is fantastic from start to finish. If you're a big fan of like Neurosis, you know, just sort of like drone bands in general, I would say again like Cult of Luna, Pelican, but again, even slower. Definitely check this out. I've been meaning to check out their other releases too. I think they only have one other album because I believe this band is defunct now, but I do want to check out more by them, even if it is just one other album. I'm sure it's a collection of like 3 40-minute songs or something like that, but I'm down to listen to it because this is absolutely awesome, so check it out. And that knocks out Maine, or at least as much Maine stuff as I have that I definitely wanted to bring up. I'm sure there's more going on in Maine in terms of the metal scene. I just haven't got around to checking out what all is in Maine. Either way, this was a lot of fun to do. It's good to get back to these States of Metal ones, and I'll eventually get back to them, but I'm gonna go pretty much hard into the collection updates here. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below to thrallsmetal.com. Our Patreon link is there. It's also on our channel somewhere. And that is where our store is. If you would like to check out our shirts, that is where to find them. We have our discounted older ones. We even have hats now. Either way, if you are interested in any of our merch, that is definitely where to find it. And of course, thank you guys so much for liking, subscribing, following, all that shit. It means the world to us. Got a lot of stuff planned, and man, there's just almost no time to do it all, but we're going to find a way because, Judas Priest discography ranking, that's going to be a little ways off because that's a lot of listening, but yeah, tons of reviews come out because everyone's releasing an album here lately, and there are tons of shows going on, so it's going to be kind of hard to juggle time to review stuff and time to go to a show. But I'm down for it because I'm a metal-obsessed lunatic. So once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and we will catch you later.